This episode is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, the #1 seller of games and gaming accessories. And GatheringMagic.com, the #1 resource for Magic the Gathering news and articles.
Hey, my name's James, and my commander is Maelstrom Wanderer, and this deck, like him, is a 3-for-1. Woo! Alright, let's start with the commander himself, what he does. He's a legendary creature, elemental. He costs 5, blue, red, green, and he is a 7/5, so pretty decently sized body, 3 punches and you kill someone with commander damage. But his text is more important. First, he gives everything you control haste, which is just awesome. And then he cascades 2 times, so every time you cast him he's a 3-for-1, which is pretty sweet. And basically the deck is built to optimize his cascading potential. There are no X spells in here. There are almost no spells which will fizzle under any circumstance, which means there's only one counter spell, which we'll get to later. And unlike other Maelstrom Wanderer lists, I don't run a lot of Mass LD or anything like that, because my commander philosophy is, I want to see everyone's deck do their awesome thing, and then everyone bashes their heads together until somebody wins, which seems pretty cool. I don't like it when people blow up my lands, so I'm not going to blow up other people's lands. That's sort of the theory. So first up, we have Riku of Two Reflections, who is the co-commander for this deck. When Maelstrom Wanderer is getting a little stale, when I want to change a pace, or if someone else in the playgroup is playing him, I'll switch over to Riku. He's neat because he lets you use the same cards in sort of a different way, rather than Maelstrom Wanderer, which is just pure Timmy cackling, casting multiple spells for free all the time awesomeness. Riku of Two Reflections is more just about slowly building up value, copying things is cool, and yeah, he's a cool alternate. And then the other alternate commander, which, if you've been paying attention, is the only other rug commander, so that's Intet the Dreamer. I don't use her as much, but she's a very good cascade, because if you have 3 extra mana, she has haste, so she'll get to swing in, and then you get to cast another spell for free. And who doesn't like casting spells for free? I sure do, that's why I built a deck about it. So we have our mana base. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 basic forests. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 basic islands, and lonely 2 basic mountains, because, let's face it, green and blue are cooler than red. Sorry, red mages. You can still kill me with your burn decks and legacy, that's fine. Alright, and then after the basics we have our cycling lands, because when you have too much of one color of mana, it's nice to be able to turn them into extra cards. We have our guild gates, because I like my dual lands to cost 5 cents instead of $50, and those do that admirably. Simic Growth Chamber, Izzet Boilerworks, and Gruul Turf, the Karus, are awesome, because who doesn't like lands that also generate card advantage in a weird way that beginners don't understand, and I have to be like, no, it's really good, trust me, and they still don't believe me. Then we have our Pain lands, which are great because they're cheap and they're dual lands, and they come into play untapped, which is nice. And our check lands, which I have from playing Standard. So again, cost effective. Now we're on to our 5-color lands. The Vivid lands are great. No need to really explain why. Just cast them, receive manas. Terramorphic Expanse and Evolving Wilds, also great. Cheap 3-color lands. Now, these next 2, Transguild Promenade and Rupture Spire, are not the greatest cards ever, but my deck doesn't do a lot on turn 2 anyway, so I don't really mind skipping it in order to play a 3-color land, because, yeah, it's pretty okay. Exotic Orchard, commander, multiple players, almost always produces all 3 colors. Command Tower always produces all 3 colors. And our only colorless land is Alchemist's Refuge, because we're going to have a lot of mana in this deck, and sometimes you want to cast things in response to other things, and it seems cool to be able to do that. So first up we have all of our ramp cards. We got the classic Rampant Growth, Kodama's Reach and Cultivate, which are both great because there's nothing worse than Rampant Growthing and then not having a land drop the next turn, so solve that problem right there. Harrow, which is great because it gets you 2 lands untapped right away, so you can play Harrow, then drop another 2-drop, which is pretty good. Primal Growth is basically just Harrow, except instead of sacrificing a land, you sacrifice a creature. For whatever reason, I don't see a lot of people play this card, and it seems awesome. I always am happy when I resolve it, so there's that. Next we have Sakura-Tribe Elder, who is a Rampant Growth that also happens to be a creature. As we all know, creatures are the coolest card type, so why not have him? Fertilid is 2 Rampant Growths, and also a creature, so, you know, can't go wrong there. Oracle of Mul Daya is a lean, mean card advantage machine, as well as ramp, as well as letting me know what's on the top of my deck, so I can have an idea of what I'm going to cascade into, so that's a nice little bonus rider on the end there. Here's my super secret tech of Emrakul's Hatcher. Cast him, then next turn hit your land drop, and you have 8 mana, so that's enough for Maelstrom Wanderer, so that's what we do with that guy. And then the Grand Mac Daddy of all ramp spells, Boundless Realms. That's why I have so many basics in my deck, because you want to be able to get 7 or 8 lands on this thing consistently. And yeah, so seems like a good thing. Now we have our ways to recast Maelstrom Wanderer, which is sort of the point of the deck. Crystal Shard is awesome. It's got a bunch of different modes. First of all, it can protect your dudes in the early game. It can let you recast value guys, like maybe recast your Fertilid, or, you know, some of the other dudes in here. And since Commander is a big multiplayer format, occasionally the board state will get complex, and your opponents will tap out and forget about it, and you could get them. Cloudstone Curio, another card with some pretty obvious implications. Unfortunately, it doesn't work the way a lot of people think, because Maelstrom Wanderer doesn't enter the battlefield until after the stuff he cascades into, so you can't bounce him right away, but all you have to do is cast another creature, and then he comes right back, so that's pretty good. Wizard Mentor, he works well with Maelstrom Wanderer because he gives everything haste, so Wizard Mentor's got haste right away and can bounce it right away to protect it, or, you know, just to recast it if you happen to have that much mana, which is not impossible in this deck. Species Gorger is a replacement of his buddy from M13, whose name I can't remember, but who was a mana less and 2 shoe sizes smaller. Didn't like him as much because the difference between a 4/4 and a 6/6 I find is actually pretty relevant, and yeah, not an effect you really want to have in multiples, so there you go. Now we have some cards that let us set up the cascades. So Ponder, always awesome. Awesome on the first turn, awesome right before Maelstrom Wanderer, and cascading into it isn't the worst. If you hit it first, you get to set up what you're going to hit next, and if you hit it second, well, whatever, you drew a card. Preordain is virtually the same card as Ponder. And 4C is mostly in here because jokes. And we have Magus of the Future. Future Sight Effect is one of my favorites because I like card advantage. And Magus of the Future is a creature instead of an enchantment, which makes him de facto cooler, so there you go. Next up we have Krosan Grip. Awesome role player. There's tons of relevant artifacts and enchantments that need to get killed, like Memnarch and Mana Rocks and, you know, whatever. Pretty much always has a target when you cascade into it, so you don't have to worry about that too much. And if it doesn't, well, then your opponents don't really have any permanents, so who cares? You're winning anyway. Birthing Pod is just sweet, sweet, sweet value in this deck. All the creatures I have awesome enter the battlefield abilities, and lets you tutor for whatever you need at the time. It makes the deck into sort of a toolbox deck. And I've used it more than once to get my commander out of my deck after he's been tucked, which is not a interaction I had thought about when putting it in, but it turns out is super useful anyway. So Birthing Pod's a great card, dominating Modern right now, dominating Commander always. Now we just have sweet, sweet spells. Rite of Replication is great because all my creatures are great, so why wouldn't I want 5 more of them? Factor Fiction is just a great card, and since this is a multiplayer format, if one of your opponents doesn't particularly have a problem with you drawing 5 at the time, you get to, so that's good. Tidings, who feels bad after resolving a Tidings? Answer, nobody. Time Warp, because, yeah, I gotta be that guy who cascades into an extra turn, but there's only one in here, and I try not to be too much of a jerk about it, because I'm probably just gonna cast Maelstrom Wanderer again on the next turn anyway, so. Urban Evolution, for much the same reason as Tidings, because it's basically the same thing, except you play an extra land instead of drawing an extra card, and, you know, ramping's great. Prophetic Bolt, because, I don't know, I like cards that are 2 cards stapled together, so why not one that lets me kill a creature and then, you know, Impulse? That seems fine. Stolen Identity, because clones are cool, and clones that make more clones are even cooler. Especially since, say I clone a flyer that my opponent has, I can cipher onto him, and then if Maelstrom Wanderer is out, he has haste, so I can already get another one, which seems pretty good. Volition Reigns, because cascading into I take the best creature on the board and then attack you with it seems like a pretty good plan. Spelljack, because it's actually a plus when you counter your own Maelstrom Wanderer with this card. That means it is the only counter spell that makes the cut in the deck, and, you know, other players are playing sweet things too, so sometimes you just counter their stuff, which seems reasonable. Mind's Desire, one of my favorite cards to cascade into, because it's essentially wishing for more witches, and who doesn't want to do that? Spitting Image, again another clone, and this one is one that you can play many times over the course of a game, build up an army of whatever the coolest thing on the board is, and these clones, by the way, are all playing in super interesting ways with the legendary rules change. That's what my play group has been implementing that already, and it's led to some interesting games, like everybody has a Memnarch, what happens now? Which is pretty neat. Answer is a lot of Memnarchs stealing Memnarchs and blowing up other Memnarchs, and then those Memnarchs getting cloned again, and Memnarch's cool. I like Memnarch. I like stealing other people's Memnarch. I like cloning people's Memnarchs and then using it to steal Memnarchs. Alright, next we have Vengeful Rebirth, because all my spells are good, so why wouldn't I want to cast them again? And this lets me kill a creature while I do it. Now we're on to my creatures, although this one's a woman. Gaia's Herald, just a nice card to have. Creature spells can't be countered. I have one counter spell in the deck, so that almost never comes up. And I don't want other people countering my cool creatures, especially not when I'm cascading off them. Okay, what? Commander. Commander's a fun format. Alright, so next card is Wall of Blossoms, because this deck gets off to kind of a slow start. So, you know, it's nice to have a defender to block some early dirtles, keep commanders off you. Very effective against Theta Adele, which is a deck one of my friends has, so nice to be able to stop her from taking my birthing pod. Coiling Oracle, because I'm a Simic man at heart, and this is basically the best Simic card ever, because it either ramps you or draws you a card, and it's a dude, and it only costs 2 mana, so how can you complain, really? Eternal Witness, who is a super cool, awesome, super cool card, because it's a 2/1 creature that also gets you whatever your best spell back, and, you know, like to cast those. Mana War, because bouncing your guy or my own Maelstrom Wanderer and getting a body off it seems like a good way to go. Vithian Renegades, again, because there's a lot of relevant artifacts in the format, and it's 1 power stronger than a Viridian Shaman, which seems, you know, better. Solemn Simulacrum, because it's Commander, and therefore solemn. Flametongue Kavu, the good old-fashioned 2-for-1 from Invasion. This is actually the block I started playing in, so I have many fond memories of Flametongue Kavuing my opponent's things, and not realizing that the card was way over the curve because I was new at Magic, and I thought things like Stratodon were, oh my god, so crazy cool. Fathom Mage, which is a pet card for me. I realize that she is not the best, but she's just so awesome. I get to draw cards for playing my creatures, which is basically all I ever want to do in Magic anyway, so there you go. Bloodbraid Elf, because cascading is cool, and the fact that she is banned in Modern makes me sad, because I had a sweet Modern Rug deck where I would Bloodbraid Elf into Snapcaster Mage into Lightning Bolt. Indrik Stomp Howler, because everyone needs a little stomping and howling, and because blowing up artifacts and enchantments is great. Acidic Slime, because he's a second copy of Indrik Stomp Howler that can also blow up lands, and also blows up creatures when they fight, so that's pretty good. Of course, Muldrifter is here. Muldrifter is Muldrifter. Muldrifter is a divination that for 2 extra mana is a 2/2 that flies, that draws you 2 cards, that gets you can get off Birthing Pod, that you can cascade into, that you can bounce. Basically, the best card ever. Kiki Jiki Mirror Breaker, because with all these sweet enter the battlefield effects, I'd like to be able to do them every turn and then also attack with them, so why not have her? Mercurial Chemister, who I'm very happy is awesome in this deck, because I was looking for a home for him, and giving him haste is a huge, huge bonus, since it lets you draw 2 cards right away, or kill something right away, and it sort of mitigates the fact that he's a fragile little baby 2/3. Brutalizer Exarch is a Swiss Army knife, gets rid of any troublesome permanents, and lets me tutor up a creature, so if I hit him first on my cascade, I get to cascade into whatever I want next, which is nice. Arcanus the Omnipotent, because drawing 3 is awesome. Progenitor Mimic, because whatever creature you have, I want one too, and I want another one, and another one, and another one, and another one, and another one. Prime Speaker Zagana, because drawing a bunch of cards and then having an 8/8 seems like a good way to win the game. Ethereum Horn Sorcerer, because who doesn't want a baby version of their commander in their deck for when they can't have their commander? Platinum Angel, because losing the game is lame. Avenger of Zendikar, because winning the game is awesome. And because when you cascade into Avenger of Zendikar, immediately followed by Boundless Realms, the whole table scoops. Sphinx of Athun, because Factor Fiction is already good, so having it also be a 5/6 flyer seems even better. Phyrexian Ingester, because apparently Mono Blue is allowed to have creature removal. Who knew? Diluvian Primordial, because this is a format where my opponents will occasionally cast cool spells too, so why not take them? And of course, Big Papa Palancron comes into the battlefield, untaps all my lands, lets me cast more spells. Worst case scenario, he's a 4/5 flyer for 0 mana, but usually he does a lot more than that, so that is my deck. And there's my sweet Simic card from the DGM pre-release, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, so like I said, not a lot of disruption in here. It's more a deck about just doing sweet things all the time. Not a lot of synergy, because who needs synergy when all your spells just win the game on their own? So yeah, that's the deck. Thanks. Thanks for watching Commander Decks, and favorite and subscribe, because this channel is awesome. Maelstrom Wanderer, yo. Out.